There's no Yankees over there. No.
How many?
There aren't any.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a practice run.
Maybe fire a couple of shots just to make sure.
We just came from over there. There aren't any over there.
They're in Deathway.
You know, a lot of them never saw it before they got there. Before they stepped off. That's the legitimate truth, especially for those, I'm getting into way out in the weeds, but like Trimble's division. Trimble's division, you know, they're several hundred yards, but they're back in the woods, and they don't move. What we fail to realize is they're pinched in there. That many thousands of men along Seminary Ridge are really pinched in there. So you wouldn't move that much. And in a combat situation, you would not want privates wandering too far, right? Because people's mortality is on their mind at that time. I'm not saying that they've thought about it as deeply as I am, but basically a lot of people shirk. And I mean that for both sides, you know, more Union than Confederate, of course. Nobody, a serious statement there. Okay, well, all right, we'll just use that. Well, sometimes not every joke works. So they didn't see it, so they come out of the wood line, you know, they're looking across at what you're looking across at right now. And going back to your earlier statement about seeing the heights crowned with Union infantry, artillery over there, I can't imagine. Some of the artillerymen one of the artillerymen recorded that, I believe it was North Carolinians, coming out of the woods over here, that they were saying to each other, not the artillerymen, they were saying to each other, this is worse than Malvern Hill. This can't be done. I mean, they were already the artilleryman noted that it was the first time that he had ever heard Confederate soldiers doubt that they could accomplish something before they even started. So, I mean, you know, I don't know what you're coming on this tour thinking, but when I was a kid and when I first started it, and I marched across Pickett's charge in my parents' pasture in Houston, Mississippi, there was no fear. There was only glory. And there was only Armistead, who was the guy in my kid's book. You know, what was that? That Bruce Catton book. You remember my big coffee table book, had the cartoons in it, you know, with the little battles, little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh man, that's crazy. Armistead, that's the way you want to go. That's a soldier's death right there. So, I guess I've wasted 5 minutes on that. Oh, never finished. Everybody gets a kick out of, some people get a kick out of my ADD. I never finished the story. I exhausted my vocabulary because Ben proceeded to tell me that he wasn't coming over to unload the last load of sticks. Well, I didn't know that the pickup truck was a dump truck. I had failed to realize that. In other words, I didn't know it was going to unload itself. And that's where I proceeded to exhaust my vocabulary. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
We had a good weekend this past weekend over at Spangler Springs, shooting black powder. Everybody went home, so I'm happy about that.
It was a good weekend.
Yeah, it was. Weather was good for us.
Okay, yeah.
What part of Ohio?
Central?
Columbus?
A little east of there.
What county?
Licking County.
Perfect. Lincoln. Well, here's something you'll see every day.
Yeah, my wife and I, we just flew in from Orange County in California and to Baltimore, and got here 20 minutes ago.
Thank you for coming from Orange County.
Yes.
And I want you to know that I used to watch, back in the day, I used to watch Real Wives from Orange County. And I want you to know they have credit cards that I've never even heard of.
I bet. I bet.
Yeah, I was really impressed, and the money they were dropping, I was like, whoa, you know?
I got normal credit cards. I don't think that's not everybody.
Kind that used to drop out the wallet, you know how they done roll
Yep.
everything?
Well, there's some beautiful places.
All right, so what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I've got a couple hours supposedly to get you to conduct this battle walk and get you across the field. I'm like an old car. I'm pretty hard to start, but I run pretty good once you can get, if you never get me going. So y'all just have to bear with me while I try to get it cranked up here. I'm going to try to do everything I can in the shade. I did this last week with Barksdale because I don't have a lick of shade. Y'all can look that up in the dictionary. A lick of shade going across this field. And so what I'm saying is we're just going to walk across the field basically. So we'll be spending a lot of time here. We'll be spending a lot of time on the front end at the edge of the woods where we can see the bombardment and so forth. And then as we go across the field, I'll try to minimize your time in the sun. But, you know, hey, we've been in worse. Yep. My people were asking me when I got out of the car about 10 minutes ago, was I expecting anybody to show up on a Friday in this weather? And yeah, people gonna show up. This is Gettysburg, right? My father said, you know, it's half your battle's over if you just get the mindset that you're about to do this, right? And all of you are prepared. And we're gonna get hot, but at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock this evening, you'll be able to say, wow, right here. Some of y'all even may still be together. Couples don't look at each other. Okay. So let's get going. Let me just start here because I'm going to move you a couple of times. Actually, let's not do that. Let's walk over to this handy dandy map, which the Park Service has supplied us right over here by the monument. Ooh. What's he doing with it?
What's he doing? What do you do with those videos? You're here all the time. Do you post them anywhere?
Yeah, he posts them.
Like where?
YouTube.
YouTube.
Under what?
The Amazing Stuff Writer. I'm not kidding.
The Amazing Stuff Writer?
Well, just Stuff
Just do a
Writer. It
search
should
for
be.
Stuff Writer and
Yeah.
it'll come up with the whole library.
Stuff Writer does not speak is the reason he does not answer. Stuff Writer is a man of no words. If you would like to speak to him, I will give you a mailing address at the completion of this tour. He will possibly get back to you. He may not. All right, y'all probably want to ease a little closer so you can see. So, come on, Stuff Writer. I don't know if your camera can pick this thing up. So this is an overview of the map of Gettysburg, and I'm gonna bet with the map upside down that this star is where we're at. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and tell y'all right now I think that's what it's gonna be. So what happens real quick, this is not the purpose, but to orient you, here's Gettysburg. The first day's fight, this is going to be north toward here. Do I have a directional thing on the other side? Yes. North is this direction. First day's field, Confederates overwhelm the Union forces, driving back through the town of Gettysburg. They rally on Cemetery Hill, and on the night of July 1st, morning July 2nd, the Union Army brings up the rest of their corps and forms a fishhook. Left flank on Little Round Top. This is the eye of the fishhook, shank running along through here, through number 6, around to number 5, which is Cemetery Hill, around to number 2, which is Culp's Hill, and 3, which I suppose is Spangler Springs, just guessing. So here's your fish hook right through here. All right, so the Confederates are going to come up and form a semicircle all the way around the fish hook. And on July 2nd, don't need to go into too much detail, the Confederates are going to launch their main attack down here behind you, or down here around the Peach Orchard, Emmitsburg Road area. Dan Sickles moves out, his corps is destroyed. The Confederate sees stop 12 here, the Peach Orchard, but they fail to gain stop 7 or position 7, which is Little Round Top. Which I know, flash on me real fast stuff, right? I know the date it's gonna open, and I'm not gonna tell you. I could sell lottery tickets right now. All right, so the Confederates attack the Union left flank, and with the Confederate right flank, that's gonna be James Longstreet, his 2 divisions, coupled with A.P. Hill, and the fighting rolls from the south to the north, basically to where we are right now. Now, getting into Pickett's charge, you know, the Confederates do not win the battle on the second day, but on the second day, 1 brigade of Georgians, Wright's Georgians, Ambrose Wright's Georgians, leaves from this vicinity and marches across to that patch of woods. It's the only time in your life that you get to use the word copse. All right, and that copse of trees over there. And so that copse is the center of the Union position. Well, Wright's Georgians end up in that vicinity right there. And there are some people that think that on July 3rd that possibly Robert E. Lee had a thought, well, you know, if 1 brigade of Georgians could make it up there, I wonder what would happen if I sent 2.5 divisions up there. So that is one thing that may have gone into his thinking. Of course, that's pure speculation. But what is not speculation is those Georgians, those 1,200 Georgians did make it. Now, E.P. Alexander is in charge of the artillery out here. And he talks to Wright, and he says to him, you know, what do you think of our odds of attacking across this field? And Ambrose Wright on July 3rd, not July 2nd, after he had fought all the way around there, that area the day before, he says, you know, the problem is not getting there. The problem is staying there. Because the whole Yankee nation is on that ridge, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. But he's making the point, you can get there, how are you going to sustain it? Of course, nobody's asking Ambrose Wright on July 3rd. The person that is pushing this attack is this gentleman right here. The man in bronze, the marble man. None other than Robert Edward Lee of Virginia. Can you ever pronounce Virginia with enough syllables in it? Virginia. Should have an H in it. Virginia. Right there. So, you know, Robert E. Lee is is up here to win it. In it to win it. You know, he's got all of his chips in. People come up to me and they want to know about Pickett's charge, all this, and they want me to justify it to them. It's pretty much, in hindsight, a pretty bad idea. I just go ahead and cut to the chase. I figure most of you know the story anyway. And good to see you. I didn't see you before. No, you. Yeah. I don't really, you know, and I know that I'm a fan of Lee, and I'm of course conscientious about that, my own bias. I try to remove that. I still don't see how you get away from attacking on July 3rd. I mean, that's just my own opinion, and always be my opinion, because it can only be an opinion. I mean, what are you going to do? Withdraw after 2 days? I mean, what is the other option here? Wait? Robert E. Lee, yeah, that might have been better. Robert E. Lee's official reason for fighting the Battle of Gettysburg, now I don't know if I agree with this, but his official reason is because his army could not stay here in this area for very long, meaning sustain themselves. Supply and logistics. Supply on this side. They eat everything. He said that the battle was forced upon him because of that reason. It's a fine line. I don't know if I actually believe all that. I think Lee gets a little over his skis here, so to speak. But nevertheless, I'm sure it was a legitimate reason in his thinking. Anyway, Robert E. Lee decided it's going to attack. It's not if, it's where. All right. And I don't know about y'all, but my backside's getting a little warm. Let's go on over here. Walk on down. Let's go on down to the shade down here. While we continue to consume Matt's magic elixir. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. Thank you.
One of your fellow rangers.
Volcom Stone.
One of your fellow rangers has the
that
opinion that this was a cover so Lee could get the supplies out of Pennsylvania back down to Virginia.
You're asking from the Union perspective.
Well, Lee made the charge. This is not my opinion. This is his opinion.
Okay.
He was given it that Lee made Pickett's charge in order to delay the Union from catching up to supplies that were being sent down to Virginia.
No.
See, not my opinion.
No, you would no. No, you wouldn't sacrifice men for that. No, he's not. That may have been one of the unintended consequences. I might grant him that, but I don't think that was in Lee's thinking. But that, once again, welcome to the Battle of Gettysburg. I don't think it's any much clearer. I can sit here and harp on it for the next couple of hours, but sometimes I think we really overthink these things. I think basically the plan is no more than this, ladies and gentlemen. I put forward to you this deep thought. I think that Robert E. Lee's plan is just to march across this field and knock them Yankees off Cemetery Ridge. Period. I think that's it. That's the objective. And, well, okay, Matt, what are they going to do once they get there? Well, they're going to stay there, is what they're going to do. Because I've never found any accounts about what they were supposed to do when they broke through. I've never seen that. I've seen speculation about it. I've never seen actual, orders, well, we were going to wheel to the left or whatever, to the right. No, I just think they're going to go up and hit it and knock them off. Now, where does it come into play? Where you see those woods over there to the left, you've got Rhodes Division, portions of it, what's left, not over at Culp's Hill. They've got the 2 or 3 brigades in there, Thomas Brigade being one of them, etc. Now they're going to go forward. They're support troops. They will go forward once Pickett's charge is successful, what we know is Pickett's charge. And then they will charge from that neighborhood where you see the tree line to your right, up on top, that's Cemetery Hill, right there. So that's when you attack Cemetery Hill, after you see Cemetery Ridge. And your distance is a lot shorter. Y'all take a ride back behind McDonald, all right, in that neighborhood. You watch that ridge, it just drops off precipitously going toward the rec park down there. Well, Rhodes Division is behind that lip right there. It's hard to see with the houses there. But turn your car back around and head back the way you came, let's say Queen Street or something, and you're going up towards Cemetery Hill. Anyway, my point is, even in the modern day, you can turn around and it's a much shorter distance from that neighborhood to Cemetery Hill than it is from here to Cemetery Hill, for example. So I think, they were just under orders to let this go first and then stand by to support. So they had gone that far, Well, the only one that gets the horsefly. What else we got? Let's line these men up so I don't burn too much time. Matt's always too slow out of the gate. Why are you backing up, CJ?
I thought he was filming.
Oh, okay. No, it's only the amazing stuff writer that's coming out who says nothing to nobody. I tell you what, now that's an industrial sized piece of water right there. I don't know.
I came prepared.
By God, if you found that 20-pound parrot over there at Cemetery Hill, I'd see if it fit. I doubt the plastic would hold it. under that heat. All right, we're gonna make you one of Pickett's brigades. You wanna know what I'm doing? What are you doing, 14? Come on. With it. Parents are so proud of you. Well, oh, where'd you come from? There you go. Come on, North Hills. Just stand behind them. Right here. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, what we got right here, excuse me, is where I'm standing is where basically, or should I say back here, where I'm standing right now is where Robert E. Lee's statue is. Stop number 5. Okay? And as I face east toward the Union position, which you can see off in the distance over there, what I'm telling you is that Pickett's division, who we are following today, is basically all to the right, and I mean the Confederate right, of the Virginia Memorial. All right, so the troops that we are following are over here in front of us and over to the right. Now, real quickly, because this is not the focus of the tour, but the majority of the Confederate troops are down this way to the north. All right, and those are under the command of A.P. Hill. About 2/3 of the assault force, about 60% we'll say of the assault force is made up of Hill's men. Now here's where it gets kind of interesting, or thick, complicated. Robert E. Lee puts James Longstreet, his corps commander, in tactical command of this assault, which means that he takes over A.P. Hill's men from his corps. That will be Pettigrew's division and Trimble's division. There's a lot of fog or unknowns around what did Longstreet know and when did he know it? What were his perceptions, in other words? Did he believe that he took command when the assault began? Did he believe he took command in the morning? You know, little things like that which we don't know, which are just, you know, what we can live without, but it will be nice to know. In other words, when does he assume command of this? And on the other hand, A.P. Hill, who he's taking over 2/3 of his corps, is being shifted to Longstreet. How would that make you feel? Is that a vote of confidence? Number two, A.P. Hill and Longstreet had just gotten through court-martialing each other a year before. Preferring charges, I should say. All right, so I don't know if that was, how's that working now? Don't know. So, yeah, that's interesting too. So, and number 3, Longstreet, once again, is the tactical commander. And I don't think I'm going out on a limb in saying this. He don't want to do it. He does not want to do it. He just don't want to do it. And so, if you put yourself in his shoes, him being a human being, work usually reflects attitude in my experience. You know? I mean, my mama can make me go out there and mow the 4 or 5 acres with a 42-inch cut. Take me 4 or 5 hours, you know, or something like that. But, you know, I'd mow it. God help any flowers out there. You know? I know, you hate that, don't you, ma'am? You'd straighten me out in no short order, wouldn't you? You wouldn't put up with that crap. She wasn't happy about it. Anyway, work reflects the attitude. He don't want to do it. So you couple all that together. Now we're getting down to what we're following today, okay? So we got A.P. Hill's men over here. They got those Confederates getting ready to go. Now this is what I don't know. Pickett's division, 5,500 men, that includes artillerymen, are marched on to this field probably early dawn. Probably, I don't know, I'd have to look up, 5, 6 in the morning. I mean, they're on the backside of this ridge. Now they rest behind this stream. Pickett's division, let me just go ahead and start from the top. I'm a little discombobulated here. Longstreet's corps has 3 divisions. 2 of those divisions had been engaged the day before. The 3rd division, George Pickett, had not been engaged at all during the battle. 5,500 Virginians show up here and they hadn't been in combat in a year. What does that do for you? That gets your walking wounded back. What does that do for you? That gets your corporals experienced as sergeants. That gets your sergeants experienced as lieutenants. You fill in gaps right there. You're not coming into a combat situation with holes in your organizational chart, which usually opens up in short order in a combat situation, as y'all are well aware. Anyway, they're fresh. They're ready to go. Morale is high. And they're come on the field. Now they get back here, and one of the often overlooked, more people have picked up out of everything that I've said over time, have picked up about that bowl that I pointed out over in the Rose Woods. I have more people come up to me and tell me they go down in there, and I said, well, how many red bugs did that get you from going down in? But you know, Yankees, they can't, you can't tell them that. They got to figure it out themselves. Anyway, I would only go in the winter. One of the most overlooked places in Gettysburg is this stream back here, which is still there. We don't own it, don't go out there, but you can see it from our property boundary. That's where Pickett's division is encamped, if you want to call it an encampment, all on that stream before the attack. That's the moment I'd like to be there. The men are quiet, you know, reserved, you know, a little bit of laughter here and there, but this is work. Around 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, they take Pickett's division, and because we have no shade, I would walk you up there and show you. I'll remind you when we come past. When you drive past the Virginia Memorial and you start going down, you got to know Gettysburg to know that what I'm talking about. When you pass over this hill and you start going down past the Florida Monument and you start ascending up again toward the hill where the Longstreet Monument and the modern day Park Amphitheater is, that swell that you're going through is where Pickett's division, 5,500 men, would have marched through that swell from my right to my left. Is that backwards on TV? I can't remember. Does that work out? I guess it would. I don't know. They marched through that swell, my point is, in that low ground, and they come into position in this field out here. That's how they get into position without being seen. Most people overlook that. Now back to the original point. They're marching out here about 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning. People, it's June 21st. A little muggy, a little hot. It's 10:25 in the morning. A little muggy right now. We're not wearing wool uniforms. My point is to you, think along with me here. If you're a veteran combat infantry officer, or any officer for that matter, you look after the welfare of your men. Why would you bring out your best combat troops and march them out into the middle of the sun in wool uniform, in the middle of a pasture, and have them lay down? You wouldn't want to do that very long, would you? In other words, I don't think there's any conspiracy here. In other words, I put forward to you that the Confederate soldiers were expecting to attack in short order, and they file into position at 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, I could spend all day talking about this right here, but it bothers me, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit right now. If you go, nothing really bothers me. What's up with Bill Belichick? Come on, we got to talk about it now. No, I don't know.
Did you watch the Hall of Fame ceremony for Brady?
You ain't been watching the news lately. He got more problems than that Hall of Fame right now.
Obviously not. He got a big bump from the crowd when he came out.
Well, I'm sure he's still beloved. I mean, it got nothing to do with football, you know. Or everything.
I'm still a Pats fan. Don't worry.
Oh, no. I'm not criticizing the man. I want to write him a letter.
Well, he did kind of run our team into the ground.
Don't say this. We on tape. I don't want people coming over to your workplace and beating you in the ground. If you go to General Ewell's report, now I'm getting way out in the weeds. General Ewell's over here on the opposite side of the Confederate line at Culp's Hill. That's the last place you'd look for any information on Pickett's charge. If you go to Ewell's report, he says the strangest thing in his report after the battle. He says that he received word from headquarters that Longstreet would be prepared to attack at 10 o'clock. Funny how that worked out. Pickett's division goes out at 9, Ewell receives word to be ready to support the attack at 10. So let's get to the question where I can't answer. What's happening over here? What is going on? Because the Confederates fulfilled their orders at Culp's Hill and they attack. Ewell fulfills his orders and he attacks. And those men are sacrificed, right? To hold those Union troops in place. What is going on here? I do not know. I could not tell you. There's like, you know, Longstreet's not ready. And Lee, for whatever reason, I think this is a chink in his personal character or armor or whatever, however you want to say it, he will not or is incapable of, you know, motivating him. You know, sometimes you get a 14-year-old. Yep, got to speak a common language. Right here, you know. Well, adults can act the same way. And I'm not saying he's sulking, but I'm reading what he's writing, and he doesn't look like he's in a good mood either. I don't know how he's gonna. Anyway, there's tension. Longstreet doesn't want to do it. He don't want to do it. And he's telling the old man, he's like, I don't want to do it. And Lee or whatever, I don't know what they're saying. Longstreet keeps delaying and delaying. And that Confederate attack at Culp's Hill is over with. And that Confederate infantry, ladies and gentlemen, my point is, they lay in that sun. Not Armistead, getting around to where we're getting, but well, some of Armistead. But the majority, the two front brigades out here, which they are, y'all face forward for a minute right here. These two front brigades, which you have, Garnett and Kemper out here, are in the sun from 9 o'clock in the morning until around 2:30 in the afternoon. And you're going to see it. That's one of the great things of crossing this field right here. You're going to get to walk where, you know, a lot of people walk, but most people don't, nevertheless, all right? That's the one thing. That's why we're going to sweat today, so you can get out here and you can see something that you ordinarily couldn't see. All right? Tell them I said hello back here. If it's Publishers Clearinghouse, just let them know I'll be done around 12. Come up with the balloons. I'll be happy to pose for a picture. Just hand me the check.
I'll let them know.
When was the last time Lee and Longstreet met? Do you know the night?
Lee and Longstreet are meeting constantly. The problem I have, I cannot answer your question, is there's a lot of people that see them that day, that morning, that afternoon, sir, but they never say when. So I don't know the order of things. Well, I saw Robert E. Lee in the morning. I saw Robert E. Lee and Longstreet together. Okay, when? You know, I can't trace, at least I can't, trace the movements of Lee and Longstreet down to, they were together and they were apart. I can tell you that personally, I think I'm in the vicinity, that Longstreet personally was in this vicinity. I don't know if we, you know, dead on with this split rail fence right here, but never, beyond a doubt, he is leaning or laying against a split rail fence. And at one point, Arthur Fremantle, the British observer, says Longstreet took a nap. Longstreet was asked about that after the war. He said he was just resting his eyes. Yeah, my mama uses that. Every time she'll sit down and watch 10 o'clock news, it'll be 10:05. She'll be sitting on the couch and said, Mom, you're missing the news. Just resting my eyes. So, what do you think?
How long after Gettysburg does it take for the general consensus to shift to, you know, the question, what on God's green earth were they doing there? Like when does that start to show up in primary sources? Is it 10 years after, 15, 20?
No, it doesn't show up because the privates never question what they do. The officers who would question it are dead. You know, Garnett's down, Armistead's gonna, you know, I hate to get ahead of the story, but you're not, don't get too happy. Yeah, Yeah, we don't want to
My
do that.
body's missing, isn't it? They don't even know where he's buried.
Yeah, we're gonna dump you in a ditch and get to the bottom. Congratulations. Like that Fort McHenry shirt too. You know what the North did, Fort McHenry at the Battle of Gettysburg? Threw all the preachers and the doctors in there from the Confederates. Wonder what they thought of that. Preachers now. Lord have mercy. Turn around. Okay, right here. All right, I need one person to like come up and stand right here, over here. Who I got? Come on.
Right.
So just stand out here, right? So this represents AP Hill's men. Stuff Rider, you may need to swing around to the front or whatever you need to do, but so what you got right here is, I'm not going to line every brigade up from Pickett's charge, but I want to make a couple points to you before we get down to the nitty gritty. Here's AP Hill's men back here. Here is Pickett's division, and if you notice, this line is uneven. All right. If we're all going to the same spot, who needs to leave first out of these people? The guy on the left. Why?
He's got farther to go.
Because he's got farther to go. That's not what's going to happen here. They're going to leave first. They're going to get the word. There is no preconceived signal. These are the little things that are going to get them. There is no preconceived signal for them to step off. So the first thing that half of those Confederates know is that they're going forward. And the other half, I mean on north of the North Carolina monument, they can't see because of that lip. Most of y'all look, to the east. You never look to the north. They can't see Pickett's division going forward. That's what the battlefield teaches you. And so that wing over here is quickly lagging behind. But that is not the focus of our story. What you need to know is Pickett's division is advancing first, and they're out front. They're way out front of everybody else. All right, so once again, let's go back to what I thought I was going to do a minute ago. All right, so the Army commander, Longstreet's the Corps commander. There are 3 divisions in his corps: Hood, McLaws, and Pickett. As I said, Pickett is the fresh division right here. In Pickett's division, there are 3 brigades. There is Garnett's brigade, James Kemper, and who we're following here in the red trunks, Armistead. Old Lewis Armistead. What do you notice about the formation though? If he's a brigade, he's a brigade, he's a brigade, how do they look? Are they all on line together? No, they're not. How are they lined up?
Triangle.
Kind of a triangle, exactly. How many brigades are in front? 2. How many is in rear?
1.
That's right. So you have depth to the attack. This is who we're following. In other words, I've given you the broad picture, and we're going to go down to here. This is what we're going to focus on. I'm going to lose focus with the rest of this attack, and we're going to focus on these Virginians. 2,200, I'll get you the exact number in a minute, but 2,200 Virginians right here. Any questions? Now bring it down to that. So Pickett, George Pickett, is commanding these 3 brigades. He's the division commander. Longstreet is over him. All right, so Armistead. Let's talk about old Luke right here. You know, probably the nation's #1 historian on Lou Armistead is in Gettysburg, a guy by the name of Wayne Motts. Probably knows more about Armistead than I could think of anybody, or has found everything that could find so far. Okay, Lou Armistead, son of an Army officer, heir to the military prestige of a family of military men. Is that why you wore that shirt?
I literally didn't.
You did not.
No,
You
it
did
was
not.
just-
You're lying to me?
I would not lie to you, Matt.
Okay.
It just works out.
All right, step out so they'll get the joke. Lou Armistead's uncle had defended Fort McHenry during the battle during the War of 1812. There you go. Now, what's the odds of that? Go on. That's your statue, your uncle's statue in front. Well, not yours, but yours. Back there, all right? Armistead had attended West Point Military Academy, but he had been dismissed. Does anybody know why he was dismissed?
Hitting Jubal Early with a plate over his head.
That's right. He broke a plate over Juba Early's head in the mess hall, and they dismissed him as conduct unbecoming a gentleman. But he's connected. He gets back. He gets back into the military, albeit not with a West Point commission. Now, he's born in February of 1817 in New Bern, North Carolina. At 16, he entered West Point. That's probably why he hit him with a plate. He's too young to be there. He resigned because of an illness shortly thereafter. But probably because he was ill prepared. In 1836, he formally resigned for good. That would make him 19. The reason is not known, but the legend is that it was Juba Early. This is how he gets out. Gets back in, I should say. 3 years later, he receives a civilian appointment to second lieutenant. And because he's not a West Point graduate, in 1839, he gets sent to fight the Indians down in Florida, which is about as sickly a place as you can get, chasing Indians in a swamp. In 1844, he married Cecilia Lee Love, and Armistead returned to Fort Towson in the Choctaw Nation. In 1844, he also met another Army officer named Winfield Scott Hancock. In 1846, he goes into the Mexican War. Y'all come on through, you ain't bothering me. He participated in the Battle of Churubusco, am I saying that right? Churubusco, where he was highly praised. I can do this one. At Chapultepec, he volunteered to lead an assault column forward that was called the Forlorn Hope, and Armistead led the attack of the 6th U.S. Infantry and emerged unscathed. Yeah. Upon the beginning of the war, Armistead took command of the 57th Virginia. He later commanded a brigade during the 7 days. The brigade did not perform well, and Armistead's reputation was prematurely tarnished. At Malvern Hill, William Judkins, not from Virginia, but from Georgia, so you have to take the source into account, right? He says that he found Armistead hiding at the Battle of Malvern Hill behind a poplar tree during the Union bombardment. How did Judkins know that Armistead was behind a poplar tree? That's right. So that led to the nickname Poplar General. But, you know, I don't know. I'm sure he was behind a tree. And, well, I would have been too, you know. But as far as cowering, I don't know. Practicality is what I would say. Now, Armistead was known as a strict disciplinarian. His philosophy was officers were held accountable for their men, and officers were accountable to him. All right, from right to left, I'm going to break y'all up a little bit, gentlemen. Let me have you step out here. We're going to make one single line. All right, how about you step right here? Who else we got? You want to get in?
Sure.
You want to step right here? Might as well start with a bang, right? First battle walk, man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, from right to left. Confederate right to left. You have the 14th Virginia, commanded by Colonel James Hodges, 500 officers and men. The 9th Virginia, smallest regiment in the brigade, 300 officers and men. Much of the regiment hailed from the ports of Norfolk and Portsmouth. The commander, Major John C. Owens, was a former ship's carpenter. That's who you got right there. Okay, 53rd Virginia. 490 officers and men, including some descended from several famous Americans. Colonel William Aylett had risen from company commander to regimental command. He was the great-grandson of Patrick Henry. You're really going to impress me if you know who Patrick Henry is. Okay. Give me liberty or give me death. What's really impressive is where he gave that speech in Richmond. In the graveyard is the mother of Edgar Allan Poe. You get a girlfriend with a line like that, I guarantee. Private Robert Tyler Jones was the grandson of President John Tyler, who served in the color guard. Wow. If I remember correctly, and I think I'm right, Tyler's grandson is still alive today. I think I'm right about that. Look it up. Y'all think I'm joking? I think I'm right. I think Tyler's grandson's still alive. I think I'm right about that. All right. Anyway, by the time you see the video, I hope nothing's happened. Now, 57th Virginia, commanded by Colonel John B. Magruder, the largest of all regiments with 550 men, officers, and men right through here. And of course, leading the final one is the 38th Virginia, Colonel Edward C. Edmonds with 500 men. What's the one thing that grabs you about the size of these regiments compared to most here at Gettysburg? They're big. Well, you're small. No, you're right. You're small, but they're big. An average regiment would be 300. These are averaging 500. What did I tell you? A year off will do that for you. Okay, morale. The general condition and attitude of the men were at its peak. Absentees had returned to the ranks, and the quote-unquote, the passionate, how do you say that? A-R-D-O-R. Ardor? Ardor? Ardor. Me and a lady at work had an argument over this. I said ardor, because it sounds better. It sounds more romantic. But I think the proper one is ardor. I think that's what that lady says on that dictionary online.
Well, no, I think you got it with that Mississippi, though. That accent.
Ardor.
Yeah.
Well, by God. There was never a higher duty than there was to Virginia. There was never any doubt of what course of action we must take. Movie stuff. All right, the esprit de corps could not have been better. This is a quote. The men were in good physical condition, self-reliant, and determined. They felt the gravity of the situation, for they all knew well the mettle of the foe in their front. They were serious and resolute, but not disheartened. None of the usual jokes common on the eve of battle were indulged in, for every man felt his individual responsibility. I believe the general sentiment of the division, meaning Pickett's division, was that they would succeed in driving the Federal line from what was their objective point. These men are coming on the field and they expect victory. There was no straggling, no feigned sickness, no pretense of being overcome by intense heat. Every man felt that it was his duty to make that fight, and that he was on his own commander, and they would make the charge without an officer of any description. They only needed to be told what they were expected to do. A non-commissioned officer in the ranks of Armistead's brigade wrote that although he was broke down much of the time, he was always up when dear Marse Roberts wanted him for a fight, even though that might mean putting him in quote in some tight places sometimes. All right. Let me read through this, and I want to act this out actually. All right. Okay, so let's do this. Who's the 57th? Who's the 38? All right. The left center of the brigade was in the woods. So you two get the shade. Congratulations. Probably some of you, if the truth was known, these 3 units, what I would do, I'm not going to have y'all break ranks. I don't know what the order is. But you would probably, what happened is they would probably double them up too and bring them in the woods. That wouldn't surprise me if they had the opportunity. Now once again, if you're expecting to attack within an hour, you wouldn't do that. But surely after 4 or 5 hours, you might try to, alleviate something like that. All right. So this is the problem. I'm going to go back to what the alignment I had before. Let's have you two step out. We're going to do pickets again. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. All right. So we got Pickett's division here. All right. So here's Armistead. Here's Garnett. Here's Kemper. Garnett, Kemper, Armistead. Garnett, Kemper, Armistead. Armistead, Garnett, Kemper. Kemper, Garnett, Armistead. All right. What's the problem with Armistead? What's he got in front of him?
His own troops.
He's got his own troops. How do you shoot when your own troops are in front of you? Major Walter Harrison, who's the chief of staff for George Pickett, rides along the lines. I don't know if Harrison saw it or Pickett saw it, but Harrison was sent to Longstreet, who's in this vicinity, asking what General Armistead, what they should do with General Armistead. Longstreet, in my opinion, is in a foul mood. He don't want to do it. All right, it's about like me mowing that yard. He don't want to do it. And so when Harrison shows up, cuts him short. General Pickett will attend to that and brushes him off. Longstreet gathers himself. Before Harrison can get out of sight, he says, he calls him back and he says, tell General Armistead that he can make up the distance once the attack begins. All right? Now, I'm going to cover this in the shade. This is one of my stops I meant to do in a couple of hills out there. But I told y'all once we go across this field, we're not going to, I'll stop a couple times. We're not going to stand on principle. This is what ends up happening. I'll point it out to you when we get there on the field. What the original plan was, ladies and gentlemen, take a little step over here. What the original step was, ladies and gentlemen, was everybody was to dress right. In other words, everybody's going to dress right. So if you dress right, which way you going, CJ?
Dressing right.
Yeah, step over. So when he steps over and dresses right, what does this do for Armistead? Creates a hole for him to move up. Do y'all see that? All right, resume your original positions, John. At the left, go ahead.
Close that line between him and White as well, wouldn't it?
Yes.
By him slipping over.
Yes, and I would point out to you, it extends the Confederate flank further to the south. Down here.
Which is a problem when they get up there.
Your parents said just use you as necessary. All right. Next 2 hours? Especially in the sun. So you really enjoy that. This is what ends up happening. At the last minute, they change the order from guide right to guide left. Or in other words, to guide center. Ah, I like that look right there. In other words, to guide center. Now I'm going to add another brigade myself. In other words, Garnett and Kemper were ordered to align on Pettigrew's division, which shifted the Confederates from going that way to this way. Does that make sense to everybody? So what that does is, when they do that, when they switch from guide right to guide left or guide center, however you look at it, depending on which unit you're talking about. Archers is the brigade of advance, direction. That's who they're guiding upon. And he's right here where you see that picket fence. He would be aligned on that picket fence, take you all the way to the angle. So they're aligning on him. I don't know who made that call, but I can tell you beyond a doubt it's literally done when they step off. I mean, I got multiple accounts of messengers rolling over here to Kemper saying, you know, dress to the left, until finally the third guy, I even got the 3 couriers named somewhere. It was not the point of this. The Kemper throws his hands up when the third guy arrives. He goes, I know, you know. I'm going to do it. So what that does is, keep in mind who we're following today. We're blocked. We're blocked out here, and that's the reason it's going to happen. Any questions before we go across? Yes.
I'm not sure I understand why it was done.
I don't know either. I don't know either. Because I don't know. Unless they changed the focus, unless they wanted the impact of unless they changed their mind and wanted the impact of the line, where you see the massive troops, they all end up around the angle. And that may have been, maybe he wanted some depth from behind it. I can tell you that this is not what Armistead was expecting. Did he know about the change in the order? Yeah, he had to know.
So it was done on purpose. It wasn't an accident.
No. Burkett Fry, who's commanding Archer's Brigade, writes in the Confederate Veteran that he was told as they stepped off that he would be the brigade of direction. And he says literally when they stepped off, he learned this. And you couple that with the accounts I've already told you about the messengers going to Kemper. And messages are flying all over this battlefield.
Would it have been possible, especially if Longstreet's in this area, that he could have seen that it's going to be more difficult for them to get to dress that way? So at that point, he decided to dress it that way?
Yeah, I mean, it's plausible, but I don't have anybody other than the lower ranking officers even talking about it. Because they're, you know, most of these guys aren't going to survive. That's the unfortunate thing, you know? So we're already in trouble. Not only is Pickett's division leading, now Armistead, thank you, ma'am. If it wasn't a Greek tragedy, I'd laugh with you. But yeah, you know what I mean? I mean, I hope you will appreciate after this walk is over, trying to put together a battle plan in 3 or 4 hours that Longstreet did. He probably, what he was supposed to have, and all the little things that, I hope you have a better appreciation of what it took for these individual soldiers to pull off this maneuver at all. It's a wonder to me any of them ever got there with all the chaos that's already overcoming. Now, one more thing before we step off. People also fail to realize the number of casualties that occur before we even step off. Remember, Armistead's brigade, Kemper, Garnett, but Armistead especially, in the back is catching all the overshots. I love this story, and I'm going to tell it one more time because I just like this story. It's one of the best stories I ever heard on the battlefield, and I just like it because this guy, this Erasmus Williams of the 14th Virginia, is my kind of guy. All right, he's a high private. He decided before the bombardment opened up, the Confederates, General Lee's going to hit them with 147 guns. He says, I began to dig a small hole with the case knife, and he was throwing the dirt up in front of him as a small breastwork. A lieutenant in good nature stated to him, why, Williams, you are a coward. But the private kept digging while responding, you may call me what you please, but when the time comes, I will show up all right. And when the artillery begins, the hole I am digging will be a good place for me to be in. When Williams finished, he had a good little fort for the accommodation of one. Williams heard that cannonade was about to begin. It's finally time. It's around 1:07 in the afternoon, 1 o'clock. The cannoneers are bustling about the cannons. You can hear the doors start to slam on the ammunition chest, you know. Cannoneers to your post. You can hear that suction of it, you know, as those rammers go down through there. Hit that bing as it comes out, that vacuum seal on it. Oh yeah. So I settled myself in my little fortification and awaited events. The lieutenant behind me kept guiding me and said, I am going to stand right up here and witness the whole proceeding. Smiling and chatting, he took things as easy and less cautiously than I did. In a little while the signal fired, and there was a terrific blast upon all along the lines from the enemy's guns in reply. In a few minutes I was covered with dirt from the shot and shells striking near me. This is happening in this field right on the other side of these woods. Right here. Presently, indeed almost instantly, the defiant lieutenant was swept away by a shot or shell, and his blood sprinkled all over me. A shell struck in the ground right by me, with the fuse still burning. Hit right beside him. I had just time to stretch out my hand and pull out the fuse. Yeah, else both I and others might have been killed by the explosion. Wow. It's crazy, isn't it? They had to double the stretcher bearers before the attack even began. Why are they doubling the stretcher bearers? Not only from the artillery, they also got dozens of men going down from what? Heat stroke. It's one of the few times in my Civil War readings where I've heard about Civil War soldiers throwing up. And you know, some people attribute that to being nervous. Well, it may have been, but I think a lot of it was heat stroke. And they're in the middle of that field. You're already dehydrating, and you're throwing up too. Oh, it has to be miserable. All right, at the center of the line, the men of the 53rd Virginia did not sustain as many casualties. One shell did do great damage when it wounded Colonel Aylett and knocked him out of field command. The 53rd would then be commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Raleigh Martin. The stretcher bearers had to be doubled to remove the wounded now. Captain Fahrenholt saw General Cadmus Wilcox ride up to Armistead. You people will like this. During the bombardment, Wilcox had spoken to Garnett earlier. Wilcox saluted and told Armistead that the Union position was stronger than Gaines' Mill. He queried Armistead as to what he thought would happen after the bombardment. Armistead replied that he thought they would charge and carry the enemy's position, and so told Wilcox. Wilcox pointed out the fighting had been heavy the previous day, and all the ground gained had been relinquished. He also pointed out that the Federals had almost a 24-hour period to entrench and to fortify. Right there. Just as Wilcox left, a cannonball ricocheted into the woods, severely wounding a soldier and almost hitting Armistead. Those woods are right here. That's where this incident happened, is right in front of you. Many of the Confederates began to move toward safe environments. Armistead, quote, that gallant, kind, and urbane veteran reassured the men and halted them from their move with the low words that they should, quote, lie still, boys. There is no safe place here. They're looking at him. They're watching him. Whenever you get nervous, you look to your leadership. That's what's supposed to happen. It's supposed to happen on all different levels, not just the military, if you have competent leadership. All right, if you don't, then you're in a world of hurt. So let's get ready to go. The 53rd Virginia, the regiment being the center, will be the battalion of direction. Therefore, the colors of the regiment will be paramount in the advance. The Confederate battle flag in the middle of the brigade is the one that's the most important. That brigade is going to align on the 53rd. This is therefore, Armistead approached the color sergeant, Leader Blackburn, how'd you like to have that name, and asked if he could plant the Confederate colors on those works. That color bearer looked at him and he said, "Yes, sir, if God is willing," was the response. Immortal man can do it. Armistead then offered, took his hand out, shook the color sergeant's hand, and reached inside of his jacket, pulled his flask out. and bade each other goodbye and good luck. Right there. Armistead then placed himself in front of the 53rd. He draws his sword. Second Lieutenant John H. Lewis of the 9th Virginia recalled seeing Armistead as the advance began. If I should live for 100 years, I shall never forget that moment or the command given that day by General Lewis A. Armistead. He was an old Army officer and was possessed by a loud voice which could be heard by the whole brigade. Being near my regiment, he gave the command in words as follows: "Attention, 2nd Battalion, Battalion of Direction, forward, guide center, march." He turned, placed himself about 20 paces in front of the brigade, and took the lead. His place was in the rear properly. After moving ahead, he placed his hat on the point of his sword and held it above his head in front of him as he went forward. Why is he doing that? Why does he put his hat on the tip of his sword?
Rally.
Say it again.
Rally.
That's right. Rally or to do. Yeah, same thing. What's he making a point as? What did he make a point of when he was in the woods during the bombardment? He's the leader. And in the Civil War, ladies and gentlemen, leaders are expected to lead. You do not have, they do not tolerate, well, they do. There's always bad actor with millions of people involved, but by this time, you're going to be pretty confident, or you're going to be gone, or brand new and incompetent. But yeah, Armistead, I love that about him. He was telling the men he was not asking them to go anywhere he wouldn't go himself. When he puts that hat up, let me get in between you boys right here. When he puts that hat up right here, and you're marching in ranks as deep as they are, you can't see from left to right. You don't have time anyway because you're getting jostled. It'd be like an accordion. These lines aren't like a band show at halftime, people. It's like a traffic jam on a beltway. All right, it's an accordion effect on it. If I have more time, we talk about the Peach Bowl. It's an accordion effect right here. All right, and so you're jamming up and you're thinning out. So you're focused on going ahead, not what's around you. So if Armistead is standing in the ranks, you couldn't see him. And the truth is known, if Armistead gets out here 20 paces in front, you probably couldn't see him on the left and the right either. But when you stick that hat up, what happens? You can see it. And as long as you can see that hat, you know he's there. I'm not saying he's Superman or not, but the men have to focus on something. That's how you get through it. I don't know, I'm sure everybody had a different mind trick, but they definitely have to draw their attention to something else. What about the British soldiers, kicking the soccer ball in World War I, during the attack, If she could have got a hold of you right now, that's a nice watch, by the way.
It's gonna be a long night.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. What did I do with my cup? Oh, there it is, right in front of me. Any questions before we step off? That's a lot of information for y'all. So I hope to be over there in about, 30, 40 minutes. And I'll try to get y'all back in the copse of trees. And y'all be spent by then. But think about what they're going through. I'm not saying I'm justifying you can't be hot today, but I'm saying it can be done. Good Lord, have mercy. When these men stand up, a lot of them have to know that this is probably the last time. Yeah, they have to know. But, as E.P. Alexander said, we knew it was all a desperate attempt. But Robert E. Lee had ordered it. So it must be okay. General Lee had ordered it. And as another Confederate soldier said, it's a whole lot easier to go across that field than to tell Robert E. Lee that I ain't going. Peer pressure, people. A lot of pressure on these men. And they're scared. They're really scared. I don't care how many times you've been out here. I can never convey that fear that had to probably be in them as they stepped off. All right, let's get going then. Stuff writer always reminded me of Silent Cal, Calvin Coolidge. Reportedly, they were having a cocktail party at the White House, and the ladies got together, and they had got a bet together. And they said, one of the ladies went up to the president and says, I got a bet that I can make you say more than 3 words. President Coolidge looked at her and said, you lose. Woo! You'll find out. All right, one more thing before we step off. We won't be here long, but once again, I'll take advantage of everything I can. Confederate artillery is ranging from here. When we come out on the plain out here, you'll see the trees to the right, and you'll be able to see the peach orchard. You step on up there, stuff right if you want. You can see the trees in the distance right over there. That's the peach orchard. But the Confederate artillery is basically running in a line from here, from the I call the Point of Woods, all the way out to the peach orchard, kind of in a diagonal line. In other words, that artillery that's running like this, it's not running like this, people, it's running like that, all right? All that artillery is focused where? Basically along Cemetery Ridge and around the Pennsylvania Memorial. But most of that artillery is focused down Cemetery Ridge. Now the guns that you see on West Confederate Avenue as you're driving here to the tour today, as you're coming from stop 4 to stop 5, all those guns are close to the same position, right? I think they may have been a little deeper in the woods, a little bit more defilade, but that's just an opinion. Those guns were in that position, in that vicinity right there. Now you look at it. Now you have guns firing straight toward them. So they attempted as far as possible to get crossfire. Now the shells that were ricocheting among Armistead's brigade are going to be coming, well, from any different directions. They could be coming from the Pennsylvania Memorial. We'll see it when we cross the crest of the ridge. Could be coming from Cemetery Ridge, or they could be coming from Cemetery Hill. But if they're bouncing, they talk about some of the rounds bouncing down the line. In other words, sometimes it take out 2 or 3 men at a time. So it's got to be coming in at an angle, then straight ahead and so forth. I'm gonna call this the dinging tour is what I'm gonna do. At least it won yours. God dang, I tell you what. I start whooping on him as soon as he got back to the hotel. In fact, might as well just go ahead. I heard Hank Williams Jr. checked into a hotel one time down in Georgia, and he ordered a double room. They didn't have a double room, so he just made a double room. So that's what I call checking in. Right there. All right. Probably apocryphal. This bombardment is supposed to go 15 to 20 minutes, and it doesn't work. So the artillery shoots up all of its ammunition. I could do the whole tour on the artillery bombardment. But in short, they shoot up all their ammo, and the only thing left, instead of that direct artillery support, is the infantry to make up the shortcomings. Now, I don't know if the privates knew that. I doubt they did. They probably thought it was supposed to work that way. But we now know 160 years later, it's all on them. Longstreet is sitting here, and this general vicinity is where George Pickett would ride up and ask permission to begin the advance across the field. And Longstreet said that he couldn't even look at it. That's his own words. Maybe a bit dramatic, but he said he couldn't. Another vague Confederate account is very vague. I hate to use it, but it's the only one I got. This officer noted after the war, some low-ranking officer, that he recalled that Pickett didn't get an answer. That's what's always intrigued me. Like, it didn't happen exactly like Longstreet said. Longstreet didn't say anything, and Pickett stood there for a second or two awkwardly, and Pickett walked off. I don't know how many minutes elapsed, but then he came back and asked Longstreet again about permission. Anyway, what's going on here? I feel, I cannot put my finger on it, and I cannot give you any detail, but I think beyond a doubt that these two men aren't communicating, Lee and Longstreet, or maybe they are communicating, but they ain't liking it. You know, I got a lot of couples on this tour. You can be in love and not like each other, let me guarantee. Straighten it out. I'm talking about people getting out of the car. I mean, not even getting to Ohio. Put them out on the road, over there on the turnpike. Throw a thumb out. Put a sign up, I need a new husband. You know. So, yeah, everything's on them. Any questions?
Could Longstreet have called off the charge at this point, saying the artillery's not working?
I think, let me put it another way, I think Longstreet wanted any excuse to call it off. And I think he did everything, I have no proof of this, but I think he did everything he could not to do it. He desperately, in my opinion, based on pure conjecture, so do not go out and speak this, but I would not tell you if I didn't think it was truth here, if I didn't think I was right. He's hoping against hope that Lee will change his mind, is what he wants. I cannot attribute any other reason why the Confederates were not ready at 10 o'clock. But what I cannot figure out is why they had to have an agreement. Lee would not send a message to Ewell saying 10 o'clock unless he had an agreement with Longstreet. That's what I can't answer. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing out here, but he ain't doing it, that's for sure. That's for sure. Ain't. Mother would not like that. What else we got?
At this point, he wouldn't better call it off now. If he gets this far, he's sure not going to call it off now. I'm talking about Lee.
Yeah, it is. And he's willing to, we don't think of it this way, and it's a very hard mindset to get. We'll launch $3 million worth of cruise missiles to kill a camel, not to lose a soldier. Lee in the 19th century is willing to spill the blood to save the lives, which is an oxymoron, I know, but we don't think like that anymore. In other words, he's willing to spill the blood here in order to end the war. That's what his mentality is. He doesn't write that, and he probably doesn't look at it quite like that, but basically he's trading lives for a political solution, which is what soldiers do, generally. So,
He's been here for 2 days. He's got all his supplies here. He's going to go.
yes. All right. Have I put it off long enough? I ain't got another lick of shade. All right, let's go. He's got to take the place of the cavalry at the rear. He's following the wagon train from the rear. He is up by late afternoon of July 2nd, but Lee tells him to, or Longstreet tells him to stand down when he comes and inquires for orders. But Pickett does show up personally. I believe I'm right on this. Pickett does ride up personally on July 2nd. I don't know where exactly they would have met, but he does report to Longstreet. You have to wonder about those extra 3 brigades on the second day, especially when they were beat down. The Confederates always had needed that last thing. Who knows where they would have stuck them. If they would have put them here, where they did historically on July 3rd, then you would have had Pickett, McLaws, Hood, and then possibly Anderson's division of A.P. Hill could shrink their line, you know, because their front's too wide for 5 brigades. But I don't know. I guess they were in that poor shape when they got here. They needed rest or something. Or I don't know what Longstreet's mentality was. Maybe he thought he was going to win it at that point.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Why did they start to turn left?
That's a very good question. Let's work up to that because they're turning left and obliquing too, which are 2 different things. So let's talk about Pickett's charge. I told y'all about, we won't stay too long, but I told y'all about, I won't get the boys to line up again, but we had Pickett's division with 2 brigades in front and 1 brigade behind. Now look at Pickett's division from the other view. There's Armistead's brigade in that wood line. Okay? And right here in front of you, where this fence rail is, basically, as it goes down to your left, down through there, this is Garnett's brigade. They're on the lip, the other side of this ridge, this lip right here, and they're headed south. On the other side, I would approximately put it where the Spangler farm lane is the dividing point, more or less, of them and Kemper's brigade. And Kemper's brigade almost stretches down to the Sharpie farm on the backside. So if you couple this with the Barksdale brigade walk that I did a couple of weeks ago, you can get both sides of the viewpoint right here. So in answer to the lady's question about when did they start moving right here, they are instantly guiding center, which is, see where my fence is right here. Where you see that tractor over there and that fence line, that's Archer's brigade. And they're basically following the fence all the way up to the angle. So Pickett's division is trying to align where that tractor is, or they're drifting. That's your center of the Confederate advance. So how do you do this? So they actually do two different things. Come over here there, Eddie. There's actually an oblique and there's actually a left face or something. When, like Garnett's brigade and probably Armistead too, they're going to oblique, which means instead of everybody turning this way by the left flank, you turn halfway, which is turn this way, which is 45 degrees. Come on up here there, North Hill. All right. This gentleman right here, I want to tell you, was asking me some of the best questions I've ever had about Pickett's charge. I don't know who he is, but he can read, which makes him very dangerous. So if we were marching straight ahead, we would end up at the Pennsylvania Monument. All right, but we oblique. So when you go from straight ahead, turn over here, Stuff Rider. You're not getting the scene. This is the Emmy moment right here, dude. Freaking 95 degrees. New mustache, melting in the sun. If we went straight ahead, we go to Pennsylvania Monument. So we oblique. Everybody turn 45 degrees. All right, we're going to try it. Now let's just walk. Now look at where we're headed. All right, now front. Okay, let's walk. All right, stop. Oblique. March ahead. That's how they did it. Obliquing and marching straight ahead. That's how Garnett and Armistead does. Now over here, you got a problem because Kemper can't do that. If Kemper obliques, he would come over the hill, basically where the Rogers House site is, and come over the hill and start marching their way down into the valley, into that artillery. What I failed to mention is that tree line in the distance is humming, a hotbed for Union artillery, battery after battery. If you're James Kemper, you don't want to expose your infantry to that concentrated artillery fire until the last moment. How do you not do that? You can read 1,000 books on Pickett's charge. You will only get it when you come out here on this field. Kemper stays behind or this side of the highway. He's in defilade until he gets to this position right here in front of you. And luckily the field is cut over. He gets to this position and that's where the Union artillery starts opening on him, right here. But Kemper's brigade is not moving by the oblique. Kemper's brigade is moving by the left flank. In other words, they're not moving at 45 degrees, they're moving at right angles. Literally, ladies and gentlemen, let me get out here so Stuff Rider can get the shot in both. Literally where you see the Cadore farm, which actually would have been white at the time of the battle. I don't know why I'm telling you that. There's some trivia for you. Union soldiers note that the Confederates on to the right of the Cadore barn literally marched at right angles out in front of their position, where you see that colonnade out there. In fact, there's maps drawn. In other words, like a shooting gallery, people. They're marching in front of the Union soldiers. I'm not saying it's point blank range, But nevertheless, they have to keep going to the left until they connect with Garnett, and then they front up and keep going. Now I got a breeze. I'll throw you an extra added bonus. Kathy Harrison, our former historian here at the park, contends in her book Nothing But Glory, which is one of the probably more underappreciated books about Pickett's charge. She contends in her book that this was the fatal mistake of the charge as far as Pickett's division is involved. She contends that Kemper should not have moved by the left flank as far as he did. If he had fronted and perhaps gone toward where that Vermont monument is, that colonnade is off in the distance over there, she said that that would open up a gap between Garnett and Kemper to allow Armistead to come in the center. That's her theory of where it went wrong. But Kemper closes the gap with Garnett, and so the door is shut on Armistead having a clear front. Does that make sense? Because he has two Confederate brigades in front. Look, I'm not criticizing because I've had 160 years to figure it out, and it's easy for me to say that play there should have been another audible right here. Well, game's over, so it didn't happen. Shoulda, coulda, but. That's her theory. What we got? I like that breeze. All right, so does it make sense? Now look back to your left. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we're out in the sun. Now look at where Hill's corps is coming from. Pettigrew and Trimble. Now look at where the Confederates are starting. Now look at where Pickett's division is starting. I hope it's starting to come together for you. That's right. Now it's hard to see here because we're at the wrong angle, but you can't see, especially where you get down to those modern buildings. You can't, if you're a Confederate where those modern buildings are on the left, you can't see up the line because of the hill. Undulations. I got the big argument with some college kids down, and they just obviously did not agree about the southern states. I do not understand. So I had to get on my fence post and launch into something. So I used the word undulation, which they did not know, which I felt very happy about. What else we got? Even got the bag, Ohio. I'm talking about, I don't know who you are, man. All right, let's continue. Basically, as the trail goes to the left, we're following Armistead, all right, and the obliques. Well, he did when he did that Union reporter. He had tied him up, put a barrel shirt on, and put him on the back of a jackass. Rode him around camp. That didn't do him any good with the papers either.
Speaking of Pettigrew, every time I look online for his monument, it always says closed. Any idea if you've ever been there? I mean, it's not at Falling Waters, but it's close. Is it in the middle of a highway or something?
Ooh, I'm not sure the one you're talking about. I can tell you the site where Pettigrew Falls is open as the guy owns the place, and he's got like a little historic trail around there. Real nice gentleman. You can look it up, Falling Water. I forget what he's advertising there. I'm sorry about that. But real nice gentleman, and he thinks he's got almost the exact spot where Pettigrew fell. Now, the actual crossing, there may be a monument there, but if it is, I haven't seen it, or marker is probably better than a monument. But it is on, apparently, some kind of club land or something, landing or something.
Thank you.
But Pettigrew gets killed up on the hill. I actually held the gun that Pettigrew, when that cavalryman was bearing down on him, he pulled his pistol out and pulled the trigger, and the gun misfired. And 20 years ago, the ancestor came up, and he had the gun that Pettigrew was holding. I got to hold it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, it was broken. It was in broken pieces. It's going to make you sick, but it was in broken pieces because he went off on vacation and he put it in the washing machine to hide it. Yep. Yeah, that would make me sick too. He was sick to death too. Don't believe me, he was. but I wouldn't call it a Derringer. It was a small pistol. What I remember about it, it wasn't like a 6-shooter or anything like that. It was like a single shot, I wouldn't call it quite a Derringer, a little bit larger, but small size pistol. And it had a percussion cap. The cone on it went straight up. I didn't know what type pistol it was. In other words, you put the cap on straight down instead of at an angle, like a musket. I don't know. I don't know what kind of pistol it was. It was, obviously neat or whatever. Okay, so why are we standing in the middle of this field in the hot sun, Matt? That's what some people might want to ask you. Well, I don't know there, Elrod, but we're going to try to figure it out. All right, so we're down in this swell right here, and what are we doing in this swell? Look at where we came from. Look at where we're going. My question to you is, ladies and gentlemen, what can you see and what can you not see? What can you not see? You can't see the Union lines. Now, I would put forward to you that we're probably getting a little artillery fire from over here around the Pennsylvania Monument. And that's probably very disconcerting. But nevertheless, I'm not saying they had a picnic here. All right, broke out and had song and dance. It was very brief, but this is where they would pause to realign their ranks. This is where you get everything straightened out. Because over this hill is the point of no return. Right? Combat. You are not going to be able to command after combat is initiated. How do you do that? It's that loud. Okay? And if you want to be heard, how are you ever going to hear? Can't text. If you're Armistead and you want to move this brigade, say you wanted to maybe move left or right, you would need to find, on the march, under all this artillery fire, you would need to find 5 colonels. If they're still alive. 5 colonels, in turn, each colonel would need to find 10 captains. That's 50 captains. 50 captains, in turn, would have to find 50 sergeants. You see how this is not exactly like a game board where you move across. It takes real time and it takes, real lives in order to accomplish this. In other words, this is it. And Armistead can't see. Should he have gone to the left and the right? I don't know. This is the sight he's got. Garnett is disappearing over the hills. Kemper is coming down through this low point right here and will soon be behind, at least his left flank will soon be behind the Cadore barn and moving across through there. Right? So, Armistead can't see. So all he does is he goes forward. Any questions?
So is there communication between, for example, Armistead and Archer or anybody else?
Very little as they're coming on. Around this area though, and I'm not saying it was those two communicating,
Right.
But Archer's brigade, somewhere around the Emmitsburg Road, dovetails or comes to connect with Garnett's brigade in front. And one of the Confederate soldiers yelled out across the line, if you can imagine, that Tennessee and Virginia shall stand upon the works. As they were going through there. Yep. So they did meet. That puts a meeting point right there. I hedge though, or hesitate, because I don't want to give you the wrong impression. Do not picture this as like parade ground people, like Legos or something. All right, everything's just not snapping into position. This is chaos. If you look at the cyclorama painting, going back to that lady that asked me about the movements a second ago, if you look at that cyclorama painting and you pay close attention to it, you will see that the Confederates are painted as coming in something like waves. They look like waves coming in. I think that's from the en echelon movement. I think Philip Bateau, if I'm saying that correctly, the painter, I imagine he talked to a lot of Union veterans. And what did you see? Well, if you're obliquing, come back up here one more time. If you're obliquing, just stand there, face that way. If you're obliquing and I'm a regiment and he's a regiment, well, you're not, the whole line doesn't oblique at once. You oblique by company. So that regiment would actually be, I don't even know how you describe that. It wouldn't be 45 degrees at one time. It would be 30 to 40 men doing 45 degrees at one time. So you would have line, 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 line.
Staggered.
Like staggered, like the cyclorama. I think that's what they're trying to represent, unintentionally. What else we got? All right, I'm gonna take off this trail. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know if we're this in the trail anymore. It looks like the trail. I want to warn y'all as we go up this hill. We used to. I don't know if we got all of them, but please pay particular attention about the groundhog holes. All right, because they seem to be out here, and we shake them every once in a while. We can't ever get all of them. It's like you know what I'm talking about, the movie. Caddyshack. Caddyshack. Don't be Caddyshack. We don't have to bring dynamite out here. Hang on, what? All right. This is one of the first programs I ever did. Armistead. I could hardly wait to get out here and do this. One of my all-time, I didn't know anything about him. I just knew him as that guy with the hat on his sword, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't a lot of your Barksdale first?
Didn't know we were going to have a football game last night in the Bronx. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That won't make any sense 3 days from now. It's fun now. All right, look at where we came from. Just giving y'all breather. All right, now look ahead. We about to hit this fence up here. Okay? When we hit the fence, that's when we become in small arms range. This is the same view. It's what your grandparents bought you. Great-grandparents, same view. This is what you get. You get the same sight. You get to walk the same walk. And when you come over the hill, you get the same view the Confederate soldiers did in 1863. That's what we want as the National Park Service. I want my kids to come out here and see it. I want their kids to come out here and see it, right? This is history. A lot of people. When they hit the top of this hill, this is gut check time. This is where you're going to find out what you're made of. You can talk all you want. When you come over this hill and they open up, those bullets start whistling around through here. You'll figure it out in a hurry. This is where a lot of them start to leave. They're going to hit the fence. Now, as you Gettysburg buffs know, the day before, Wright's brigade had come through here, Georgians. They had charged through here. I mentioned them earlier. They came right through this position where we are right now, went past his house, straight on through there. We know that from the Union units being in this road bed. My point is, I don't know, and will never know as far as I know, but I don't know, so I don't know. I do know that I don't know. All right? If you ain't got it, you can't get it because it just can't be got. All right? I don't know how many of the fence panels were still left. Some of them had to be torn down by Wright's troops. How many there were, I do not know. It was not that many. I can tell you, though, beyond a doubt, that some of them were down. I can tell you beyond a doubt that the Confederates, Pickett's division, got some of them down themselves. But apparently, under the expediency of being fired at, they were in a big hurry. So some of them started jumping the fences. Now those that went through the fence, I'm doing this stop here instead of at the highway because you can hear me. But we're going to walk on up to the highway up here and cross. If you go, watch it when all of us get up here to this crossing, this gap in the fence. Watch what happens to this group when we go through the gap. We're going to bottleneck is what we're going to do. And that's the exact same thing they did on July 3rd. And where they bottlenecked, and what I liken it to is sand in the hourglass, where they bottleneck along the road right here, that's where the Union artillery is concentrating their fire. Canister fire by now. Tin can filled with lead balls, 400 yards or less. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, there's another fence too. All right, let's continue.
Look, they got money.
Yeah, they got money. Got some money.
They better get hit by a Yugo.
Yeah, you darn right. You don't want to get hit by the Yugo. I ain't heard Yugo in a long time. Yeah. You notice how fast we're closing this position, and you and I aren't even at the pace they would have been walking. They were moving, coming across. Everything was chaos too. In front of you it had Armistead's line, Garnett's line. Armistead's soldiers could see it by now, see them falling in droves up there at the wall. But hearing or communicating, that's all lost at this point. So the men are on their own. So if you're Armistead, where are you gonna go? You know, this is it is what it is now. Let's stop on this hill. I can get a little elevation. These people. All right, we're gonna stop here. All right. Woo! Everybody's having fun. All right, when only a few hundred yards from the Union line, James Kemper rode back to find Armistead. He would have been riding from across over here behind you from your left to your right. At some point, he looked down, mounted on his horse. Kemper looked down at Armistead and said, who was on foot, "Armistead, hurry up, my men can stand no more. I am going to charge those heights and carry them, and I want you to support me." Armistead responded, "I'll do it." Turning to the lieutenant colonel of the 53rd, Raleigh Martin, he said, "Colonel, double quick." Now you wouldn't double quick until you got within room. If you double quick those boys coming out of Seminary Ridge over there, McMillan Woods, then they're going to be tired by the time they get in this heat. There's no way, they'd be exhausted. So I can't tell you the exact spot it happened, but you would have a double quick somewhere in this vicinity. And that means move up fast. Now you got to remember, Armistead's line is going to stretch way down into this field initially. All right, which is back behind the camera right now. And we'll quickly change front. We'll get back to that in a minute. But he's coming up behind Kemper. All right. A member of the 14th Virginia recalled seeing Armistead rush again out in front of the brigade after crossing the fence. When within 100 feet of the stone wall, he was met by a mounted officer whom the regimental commander believed was General Garnett. So this action is happening somewhere in here, in this field. They exchanged words, but the officer could not hear what they were saying, and the horseman and he parted ways. Armistead then fell back behind the brigade to allow the ranks to fire a volley. Now, I don't know if the older gentleman in his memoirs is misremembering that, or actually there was a clearing in their front. I don't know. That's interesting if they were fired a volley before they advanced, if he remembered that correctly. I hope they were mighty careful. Armistead then resumed his place in front of the line and led the men in the last rush toward the stone wall. Now, Armistead comes up primarily behind Garnett, which is this position right in front of you. It's basically the angle, the high water mark, the copse of trees. With his right, Armistead's right, overlapping the left center of Kemper. All right, now the two right regiments of Armistead's brigade, I won't call the boys back together, but the two right regiments of Armistead's brigade are suddenly going to get pulled away. In other words, if we're Armistead's brigade, we'll make both of us Armistead's brigade. All of a sudden, we get, especially on the right flank, we get distracted all of a sudden by somebody else shooting at us. And that would be from the angle of the camera right now. Who comes out in that field over there? I'll give you a hint where that column is. Vermont swings out at right angles. All right, Eddie, if you want to come out here and line up, face him. Yep, right there. If Vermont is here and we're marching here, hold her wide open. Hold her wide open. You got it. He's right on your tail. Run. Go, 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 go.
They broke the wall.
Oh my God, they're gonna be there for me, I can guarantee. Yep. That's what I always think when gas is $3.50 a gallon. I see somebody peel out. I like that. So anyway, Vermont is going to swing out, and what's that going to force the Confederates to do? Turn. And so what I'm telling you is that right flank should have probably stretched out down to the Vermont monument or somewhere in that vicinity. But when the Vermont men, when Kemper's brigade clears the front, the Vermont men swing out at right angles like he's portraying, Eddie's portraying over here, and they advance toward this area right here. Well, the Confederates have no choice. In other words, that mound directly in front of you, there's records of Confederates firing in two different directions in that mound, getting in the way of each other. So the blow, this gentleman right here in between stops was asking me, as I said earlier, some very good questions about Pickett's charge. And the ratio that you need to have in order to overcome in an offensive attack or offensive action, how many men do you need to make this attack successful? 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, all right? Usually the more you can get, the merrier, right? 3 to 1 or somewhere in there. So when you pull men away from the objective, even if you had the odds, you're defeating your own purpose. In other words, the Vermont men are succeeding in breaking up the Confederates' intention by swinging out. It's classic. And unrelated to us, over here on the other side of the ridge, where you can barely see the flagpole sticking up, is Ohioans. Where'd the Ohio guy go? He's got the most proud. There he is back there. That's his boy too, right over there. 8th Ohio's advancing there, and then you've got New Yorkers over here by the White Barn, the Bryan Barn. So what I'm saying is, there's the field. There's the field. Here's your Confederate attack. Here's the front of it. And so this is what makes Armistead, why it's so spectacular. Now, I've gotten to this point, and I've left this out just for this reason, because I didn't want to get lost in the mix. I'm going to make you Garnett now, all right? You're going to be the front rank. If I'm Armistead, no, you're not running yet. If I'm Armistead, and I'm coming up behind them right here, all right? I can't go anywhere. When I hit that line right here, what's going to happen? It's going to dissolve, isn't it? It's going to blend. It's going to homogenize right here. What I haven't told you so far, and I'm saying it was 100%, but why has Armistead's brigade not suffered grievous casualties yet?
Because they're in the rear.
They're in the rear, which means you're doing what?
Being a shield.
That's right, you're being the shield. So Armistead's 2,200 men coming up behind him are in real good shape. In fact, I don't know if it was Garnett or Kemper, but one of them rides back to Armistead at this point. I believe it's Garnett, and he goes, he tells him something. And before he leaves, Armistead has his sword, and he can't talk. Even in the last moments, he can't help himself talking smack. This is a competition among these men, a good competition among these men. He takes his sword and he points at his brigade line, these of y'all coming across this field, and he yells back, "Did you ever see a brigade so splendid, as if on a parade ground? In this truncated terrain, under all this confusion, his 2,200 men were up and in order." And he was proud of them. As a career military officer, they had done exactly what he trained them to do, under a lot of difficult circumstances. And all he could do was turn them loose. It's out of his control now. So, I'll read one more quote here. Not that bad out here. No.
The breeze is nice.
Breeze, really. Yeah. Sure is. All right. Y'all enjoy. Well, look at what they did.
I know, they're hogging the shade. They've been there long enough.
Get them out.
They ought to respect their elders. Right up there. I didn't figure them for locals.
No, I think Hancock's behind one of them.
Oh yeah. Well, probably Armistead.
Stirring up
It's a
a
poplar
lot of
tree,
trouble.
right? Okay. What we're going to do then is I'm trying to keep y'all out of the ticks. What I can't see is if maintenance is mowed down by the stone wall. But regardless, what we're going to have to do, I want y'all to enjoy this last few steps in solace. I mean, I would say all I want, but this your imagination and your memory is a lot better than anything I could say. The last few steps. I want you to picture the Confederate troops already up there at the stone wall, and I want you to picture yourself as a private moving fast up through here. Now, I don't know if they would have saw any Boy Scouts up there, but we're going to go to the left over here. Well, wait a minute. We may have some movement over here. I hate to send you up there. How many of them you think you can whoop?
We can take them.
There's that 14-year-old. He eats nails. Let's send him in. Well, I thought they were going to move. All right, we're going to walk around them to the stones to the left, and I'll go first, but they'll part ways, be like the Red Sea. I'm going to have to march all over the stone wall. We'll pause. Maybe they are moving. We'll pause, and then if we can't get that shade spot, then we'll go down to the copse. We'll just have to make a circular route. So you're going to get the Confederate line and the Union line as we go up through here.
We'll push them off the side.
All right, let's go. Good old Mountain Dew, Lord, Lord. Good old Mountain Dew.
I hate Mountain Dew.
He likes this stuff. I know. Oh, Willie's gone. All right. Talking smack. You want to start talking smack? I like talking smack. Used to, you'd see a licensed guide outside that air conditioning.
Stop this Confederate.
Almost as suddenly as it began, the Kennedy smoke cleared from the field and new drilling sites appeared. All along the ridgeline, the Confederates out of the field.
Oh, there you are. Oh, you've been dinging in my pocket.
No.
Come on.
All right, coming.
We're going to go down here to the top.
Is there a tree in the battlefield that's been standing for so many years? Or what?
Some witness trees. There's a few of them.
Oh, really?
Every time I say it's a witness tree, they cut it down, though it falls down. It turns out to be only 140 years old. So I quit telling people. Now, I can do a lot of things, but these lovebirds up here, I'm afraid about to get a surprise. Whew, it's the only spot I got.
Hit him with the water.
Whew, that's a long way to go around the barn and stuff, right?
Yep.
That shade's looking like an oasis in the desert. Y'all don't have to move. I'm gonna park these people here.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna get a free show. I'm gonna tell y'all what though, they tired now. Nobody's asking any questions. That's a good sign too, where we're at. All right, look at where we came from. Oh, I like this shade now. I can stay here a while. It's all about getting, the whole trick for you non-Southerners is to get hot first, then go to the shade. See, it makes it feel that much cooler. See, that's where you do it backwards, see, it don't work. I'll give you all the secrets. Y'all be living down in Mississippi before it's all over with. You'd be like, 95, that ain't nothing. All right, look at where we came from. Look at where we crossed the road. Look at where the Union position now, from the stone wall down to the highway right there, all right? This is where they opened fire, from there to the highway. Now you can start to see, look at the post split rail fence over here. Look at the dark green, the rocky knoll, which I pointed to you. The Confederate line bends back around at right angles along that split rail fence. Some of Armistead's men would have been along the split rail fence. That's the right flank, pointed south. The rest of his line is going to be along the stone wall right here. Now, the exact ending point on the left flank, I couldn't tell you, but somewhere in the general vicinity of the angle. Either side. I could go either way. I've heard of Tennesseans right there too. So anyway, what's Armistead to do? He's got this beautiful line that runs up into the back. By this time, Garnett is down, the brigade commander in front. By this time, Kemper is down right by this stone wall in front of the copse of trees. In fact, if you got to be watching the Gettysburg movie really, really, really close. But there is actually a 5-second scene in there where Kemper is rescued by his own men. And that's actually happened historically. The Union soldiers were trying to drag him back into their lines and they were cut down. And he was saved by his own men, so to speak. All right. Armistead is the only brigade commander of that rank left yet. Are you happy about him getting rescued or happy about him getting shot? I couldn't tell. It always bears a good point to ask the question, you know, what are we actually happy about? I'm just saying, you know. Woo! All right, where was I? All right, so Armistead's the only general left on his feet. Colonel James C. Hodges of the 14th Virginia fell in a heat near the 69th Pennsylvania monument. Several accounts by Federals identified the colonel gallantly leading the troops toward the angle while his men were felled all around him. He fell within 100 feet of the wall. His sword and scabbard were destroyed by a shot, broken into pieces. After the war, Hodges' widow tried to claim his body, but like Garnett, he was buried without identification. Probably stripped for souvenirs and so forth. And among those who fell near Colonel Hodges were Robert H. Poor, that's Poor with an E, and his adjutant, Lieutenant John Summerfield Jenkins. One Confederate claimed that these two bodies fell beneath Hodges, and quote, and whose limbs were interlocked in death as their lives had been united in friendship and comradeship in the camp. Interesting. Now, the 53rd Virginia continued behind Armistead personally. Once again, remember the colonel, Aylett, had already been knocked out. Lieutenant Colonel Raleigh Martin was commanding. He maintained his place near the side of Armistead. Suddenly, the flag bearer was struck by a shell. Calling for someone to take the flag, Armistead handed it off to Colonel Martin. Now that scene has never been painted. He hands over the Confederate flag. With a shout, Martin told the men to follow him, and they went forward until he was relieved by another member of the color guard. Have any of y'all ever been to like a sporting event where they present the colors? You know, what would they have there? 5 soldiers, 4, 5, 6 soldiers? And what do they always have on the end of the colors? Who do they have standing there? Weapons. To do what? To guard the colors. This is not trick questions, people. That is ceremonial, okay? We don't think anything. In fact, the rifles probably don't even fire. In the Civil War, they aren't playing. You have a color guard. And Martin, this only took place within a few seconds. When he takes that Confederate battle flag, a member of that company comes along, the color guard, color company, comes along and takes it from him. They would have known each other. He would have known when that guy came up to him that that private or whoever he was a member of the color guard. And therefore, he would instantaneously hand that flag over. I don't know if they took an oath. I don't know, you know, what was happening. But anyway, kind of neat. Corporal James Carter, Company I, 53rd Virginia, noted that Armistead's hat, this is a cool tidbit, had slipped from the tip of his sword to the hilt. In other words, he poked a hole through it. And so if you got a hole in your hat and you handle it on the end of a sword, what's it going to do? It's going to slide down the blade right there. So Armistead did not seem to notice and continued to wave it above his head. Carter soon had other things to preoccupy himself when Sergeant Blackburn, remember the flag bearer that Armistead had the drink with? Where'd he go? Right here in front of me. Where'd you go? When he went down, Carter attempted to seize the flag, but Colonel John B. Scott caught the flag instead. Scott dashed out ahead of the rest of the line, waving the flag above his head, when he was instantly killed by a volley of musketry. Carter went down shortly thereafter. When he fell wounded carrying the flag, Private Robert Tyler Jones ran forward and picked up the colors. Almost immediately after raising them, he was hit in the arm, but he managed to continue forward. When he reached the top of the stone wall, he climbed atop the loose rocks and triumphantly waved the flag of the 53rd back and forth. His actions attracted the attention of the Federals, and the grandson of President Tyler toppled back over the wall, severely wounded with another gunshot. Actually, the grandson of President Harrison may be alive, not Tyler. But if you didn't watch till the end of the film, you would not get that tidbit, right? That's what you get for not watching. Just saying. All right. At the wall, Armistead and his men jammed up against the rear of Garnett's line. The momentum had stopped. Armistead turned to Colonel Martin and remarked, "Martin, we can't stay here. We must go over that wall." Martin replied, "Then we'll go forward." Armistead again placed his hat on the tip of his sword so that his men and the other men of the brigades could see him. Then he scaled the wall while waving the makeshift guide and cried, "Boys, give them the cold steel, who will follow me?" And over the wall he goes. Now that probably happened right here in front of you. Somewhere along this dip in the line, I think Armistead, a lot of people picture it going straight forward. In Earl Hess's book on Pickett's charge, he actually has Armistead being shot down at the wall. You'd have to read his own research, etc. I'd like to go with, or I try never to doubt the veterans as much as possible, although I have to doubt them every day because there's something contradicting. But if you will pan right over here where that group is walking right now, probably walking to it, that little gray kind of cream colored monument that's right there is where the Union veterans marked the spot where Armistead fell. So you can note from the stone wall to that marker, and I will put him approaching at an angle instead of straight ahead, a little bit lower down for the 53rd Virginia. So Armistead goes over the wall. Armistead reaches the guns of Cushing's battery. He called out, "The day is ours, men. Come turn this artillery upon them." Lieutenant Colonel Raleigh Martin went down, shot through both thighs. Captain William Treadway ran to his assistance, was shot and fell across Martin's body. Robert Tyler Jones remained at the wall, brandishing a pistol and threatening to shoot any Confederate that ran. That's some
motivation.
That's some motivation. I don't care. Either way, he's trying to send a message. Back at the guns, Armistead was down. He had 2 wounds, one in the fleshy part of the arm and the other a little below the knee on the other side. Didn't strike any bone, didn't strike any artery. 2 shots. What's your odds? Right here. Union surgeons felt his chances to be good for recovery, but on July 5th at 9 a.m., when Armistead died, 2 days later, Union surgeons were astounded. Armistead had stated, quote, that he had suffered from overexertion, want of sleep, and mental anxiety within the last few days. Only a doctor could write that. Okay. So that's what ends up happening. Armistead is taken away. Any questions? Now here's an interesting point, so I fill in the backstory for that.
So this is the only part where they cross the wall? Is this the correct?
All right, so let's get into that. So I don't know, once again, I'll say this over and over, I don't know if I got the exact spot, but when the Confederates hit the stone wall, the Union line unravels from where you see the angle in front of me, where I always say, just for guide point, to where the monument is. So you have a gap, I don't know how many yards that is, that's not far though, what is it, 50 yards maybe? Something like that. 50, 60, 70 yards that open up right in there. And the 69th Pennsylvania, which is right in front of you, they give back to approximately where we are, but they don't break. They bend, but they don't break. In other words, just like the Confederates down there shooting in 2 different directions, you got Pennsylvanians shooting in 2 different directions. Come over here, Eddie. You've got face that way. You've got not only the 69th Pennsylvania this way, but you've got the 69th Pennsylvania this way. And this way, ladies and gentlemen, is north, and this is where the Confederates broke in. So when the Confederates jump the line and they charge into this area, they're actually getting shot not only from the side, but also from fresh Union reinforcements that are coming up behind the hill, the ridge. And they level their muskets. Now, I'm not saying they killed and wounded everybody, but, you know, you can look at it. Look at where the truck is, and look at where this field is, and you know, you got to be a pretty bad shot. You know, it's like trying to hit the side of a barn from inside of it. Surely you can do something around here. But they kill and wound enough of the Confederates to send them back to the line. And now Armistead's down. Now Martin's down, and, you know, 2 or 3 other colonels. And that's just from this brigade. There are no brigadier generals. And what are those privates looking for? They're looking across the field, back where we came from, and they're looking for what? They're looking for reinforcements. And when they don't see the reinforcements, they start to think about retreating. Right. Because they can see Vermont getting closer, and they can see Ohio getting closer on their flanks. So you got 2 choices. Either you can, I always liked Americans, I always answer this now, because when I used to throw this question out, Americans always say die. That's always an American choice. I always liked that about us. That's one of the common answers. That's not exactly one of the answers I was looking for. All right, but that's a third option if you'd like it. The Confederates have 2 options, basically. You can either surrender, or you can not die, Eddie. Run. And possibly die, okay? But my point is, though, well taken by Eddie, Eddie's point, well taken, they will shoot you in the back. Oh yeah, oh yeah. One Confederate thought they lost more men getting out of here than they did getting in here. Just gunning them down. And so anyway, you got the squeeze on them. 45 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, start to finish, from here to here, fighting's over. Probably took them 20 minutes to get here. Probably we're up here maybe 30 minutes, up and down the line, maybe. And that's a real rough estimate. And then it's over with. And when you look across this field, getting toward the conclusion, I think everybody needs to cope right now. You look across this field right here, the closer you get to the Union position, the thicker the bodies get. That's what it amounts to. And especially as you get up toward the stone wall and toward the Emmitsburg Road, you know, you it's just thicker and thicker. And right here where you're standing, there would be, you know, dead and wounded Union soldiers. Anyway, let me read you a description of this place right here, which I rarely do. It's one of the Vermont boys that closed in. Now he came up here after the battle was over. A veteran of the 13th Vermont said, if there was ever any spot on that great field of battle that approximated more nearly than any other the maelstrom of destruction, this was the place. They lay one upon the other, clutched in death, side by side. The dead, dying, and horribly wounded. Some had on the blue, but nearly all wore the gray. This was indeed the great slaughter pen on the field of Gettysburg, and in it lay hundreds of brave heroes who an hour before, buoyed up with hope and ambition, were being led by the brave and intrepid Pickett. End of quote. The veteran knew what he was talking about. The Elliott burial map reflects this, with two massive trenches down there by the Emmitsburg Road. One of them contained 552 Confederates, and the other one contained 175 in two trenches. Dead Rebs. Out of the roughly 5,500 men that composed Pickett's division, a total of 42.2% were casualties. That is 499 killed, 1,473 wounded, which out of that, 832 of those, 1,400 were captured, wounded. So that's interesting. 700 of them make it back, walking wounded. Rest can't. It's interesting. 681 unwounded and captured for a total of 653 officers and men. And ladies and gentlemen, once again, 45 minutes. When Armistead goes down, this becomes known as the high water mark of the Confederacy. It is coined by John Batchelder, who is our first historian here at the park. And these copse of trees, which we're enjoying the shade of right now, were saved by John Batchelder when he saw that the owner of the land was about to cut them down. Once the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association had obtained the copse of trees right here, after Walter Harrison, Pickett's aide, had told him about the significance and everything else, Batchelder had to put, in the War Department, had to put a fence around this copse of trees to keep the veterans from long ago from stripping this place clean of souvenirs. That is why you're leaning against that wrought iron fence today, to keep souvenir hunters out back in the day. Kind of cool, isn't it? Kind of neat. Most people get up here and they never realize what its original intent was. We just always known it now. And now the wrought iron fence itself is a historic object. This to me though, yeah, and you're leaning on it. I see you over there. I see you. Get him a paintbrush. In this weather, put him on the other side in the sun.
Feel like leaning on a fence in the military.
I knew a guy one time in Mississippi that they wanted, the old sheriff, he didn't want to let him go. He told me that the judge told him he got to let him go. So he said the sheriff took him down to this local grocery store and he made him paint the parking lines all day in July. Then he let him go. I said, did it need it paint? He said, no, it didn't need paint. It just been done by the last guy. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, you know, this spot is probably, arguably, I've been here so much that I sound like a tape recorder. But this is the spot where I quote unquote played when I was a little kid. This was the spot in Houston, Mississippi. And I've been coming out here for 25 years. And like I said earlier, I wrote this program when I first got here back in the early 2000s and delivered it. And I don't do it too much anymore. It's interesting to see how I changed how I put programs together now. Found it, I gotta go back and correct myself a couple times. But I don't know. I just like to say, even on the hottest day in June, that I never get tired of it. I never get tired of telling the story of these men and the fateful day and those 45 minutes in which they had to cross this field. And I think the reason that you're here right now, all 30 of you right now, are here is because you're not tired of hearing that story either. You can cross it 1,000 times. Every time you know the ending before I get there, but there's always something else that you can learn. And I think not only Pickett's charge, but across this battlefield is, learning opportunities. And because we don't have all the answers is the reason that keeps us coming back here today. In other words, thank your great-grandparents when you get to heaven for buying you this view. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Oh, Dan Sickles too. We're going to thank old Dan. We like Dan. We like Dan. All right, who's ready to go to McDonald's? They closed the DQ. You are. I don't know what you had to do or what he had to do with the makeup. Here's Hancock. That's how close they were. Or far apart, however you look at it. But I don't think Armistead ever... I think he gets up here. I don't know. Like I said, this doesn't sound like him. He's a career military soldier, and he's here to win it. Now, he may be in pain. He may be regretting an affront, attack, and maybe him and Hancock, maybe it was an allusion to some conversation we don't know about. But Armistead, is also the guy that pulls the parched corn out of his hand back at the Spangler farm and tells his sergeants that men that can subsist on this can never be whipped.
He did give us the facts. He did give us the facts.
Let's get back in the shade. That way we got some shit.
It's Harrison Ruffin Tyler. So that's why.
Harrison
Ruffin Tyler.
Harrison is the grandson of
John Tyler.
John Tyler. Okay, so I was right the first time. See, if you watched all the way to the film, it is.
I looked it up.
Okay.
Bonus content on the battlefield.
He was on C-SPAN.
Let me say that since I wrote this program, that I may or may not have learned more about that organization. So in the aftermath of the battle, the 72nd Pennsylvania is resting somewhere over here. All right, so that begs the question, but I don't get, that's another thing. You know what I mean, Eddie. They're resting there, and some of the members of the regiment go out and mingle among these wounded, and they're helping them, and when good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. They come back, one of the guys comes back to the line back there, and he says there's this rebel general out there, and he's saying something about the son of a widow, and he's making no sense. He's delirious. And some of these people, some of the members of the unit were Masons, and so whatever was said was relayed. Those Union soldiers came to Armistead's aid. Big word would be succor, to his succor. not spelled sucker, S-U-C-C-O-R, which I like succor, but apparently it's sucker and it doesn't sound as good. But among them was Captain Henry Bingham, who was, I do not know this because Bingham never said this, but it would not surprise me if Armistead sent the distress signal once, he sent it twice, you know. So either way, that's not good. I hope they're all right. Medevac. Bingham arrives there, and Bingham identifies himself as one of Hancock's staff officers. And that is where the account comes of Armistead supposedly apologizing. That's where that comes from, if I remember correctly, from Bingham. But either way, Bingham takes Armistead off his personal effects, wallet, watch fob, gold chain, you know, and the whole, everything of value, he hands over to Captain Bingham. Now, he either did that because he was identified with Hancock or he was identified as a Mason, or both. But regardless, Armistead didn't know him, but yet he felt comfortable giving him his personal effects. And if I could have a point of order here, he hands the effects off to Mrs. Hancock, is who he sends them to. You know, if you want to get things organized, you know, you need not come over to my house because we got bachelor problems over there, you know. Although I do not have a dead animal hanging on my wall. All right, so I am lacking in some credentials right here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Armistead is taken back. The whole scene with Bingham, for you trivia people, is Armistead's on a stretcher. And all I can tell you is he's on the backside of Cemetery Ridge when he meets Bingham. So to back up, because I didn't tell it clearly, I think you have Pennsylvania soldiers from Webb's Brigade helping initially, and no doubt they were probably Masons. Then Bingham gets there, and I'm not quite sure about that. But Bingham doesn't get here when Armistead's still laying in the wounded position. I would put forward to you, which has always been a mystery to me, is they thought, meaning the Union soldiers, they thought they had captured General Longstreet because they send a flag of truce over to across the battlefield, assuring Robert E. Lee that General Longstreet will be well taken care of. And Longstreet writes them back and thanks them, but assures them that he's doing quite perfectly fine where he's at now. So my point with that is, though, ladies and gentlemen, my point with that is Armistead wasn't conscious, or he wasn't lucid, he wasn't saying anything. Why would they think they had Longstreet? I do not know. I don't know. That's a gap in the story of why that's happening right there. So Armistead, that's about all I know. Armistead is taken from there back to the 11th Corps Hospital, the Spangler Farm, which is owned and operated by the Gettysburg Foundation today. It's open during the summertime. Weekends, I believe. You check the hours, it fluctuates every year. But the cool thing that they have out there associated with Armistead is Armistead, because he's a general officer. Ma'am, you may want to move in the shade before you get burnt. Because he's an officer, he is placed in the kitchen, not in the barn with the rest of the Padawans, you know, over there. It's the Star Wars reference. Isn't it? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Sort of. How do you say it? He's in the kitchen, and the kitchen is still there. So there's a Masonic marker at the gate, entrance of Spangler Farm, the gate, and it's also in the summer kitchen where he dies, for you Masonic. And for the Masonic people that might be watching, the Friend to Friend monument is in the cemetery annex, which is the annex of the cemetery. All right, so that monument is, I guess I could best describe it. If you ever eat lunch at Tommy's, like it's my greasy pizza right there, is one of my favorites. I should be getting the reps on this, you know, comps. I don't ever get. But anyway, you can walk across the street from that and straight up to the friend of friend. It's one of the most beautiful monuments we have. But what it portrays is Captain Bingham receiving the personal effects of General Armistead. And if you look closely, Armistead even has holes in him, in his arm and his leg. So that's pretty cool right there. Yeah. What else we got? Is that enough on Armistead? If anybody can find anything more, we are really, really weak. You notice that I didn't read anything from his pre-war years because we don't have the letters. We don't have the documentation. We have glimpses of him. So if you're out there somewhere with it, we'd surely appreciate getting a glimpse of it if you could, you know. Anything you've got Civil War related, we don't want the originals, but if you would please mail them, Gettysburg National Military Park, care of Matt Atkinson. I'd surely appreciate that. Right there. And Pickett's report, if you got that sitting around the house, I'd like to see a copy of that too. Care of. Right there. What else we got? I want to thank, I think half of them left, but I want to thank the kids that helped me out in the program today, okay? All right, so y'all been, yeah, very good. Give yourself a round of applause. And for the poor spouses who just had to come across this field in order to fulfill some kind of spousal duty, I apologize about the extra 45 minutes on the tour. All right, thank y'all very much.
Thanks, man.